Once upon a time in Nigerian politics, the name Muhammadu Buhari evoked hope. A former military general turned born again Democrat, a man whose stern face and reputation for discipline inspired millions who were tired of the rot, the scandals, and the endless disappointments. But in the end, what began as a promise to restore Nigeria became yet another narrative of constant missed opportunities, economic hardships, and national frustration. Buhari's public journey began in uniform. As a young and disciplined military man, he rose swiftly through the ranks. In 1983, he overthrew the civilian government of Shehu Shagari in a coup, citing widespread corruption and economic mismanagement. Though his military regime was short lived from 1983 to 1985, it left a legacy of strict discipline, the infamous war against indiscipline, and a reputation for personal incorruptibility. For many Nigerians, especially in the north, Buhari represented integrity. Buhari contested elections thrice in 2003, 2007, and 2011 and failed each time. Each loss only deepened his reputation as a resilient, no nonsense patriot. Then in 2015, a powerful alliance between the CPC and the ACN birthed the All Progressive Congress APC. With Bola Ahmed Tinubu's political machinery behind him, Buhari rode a tidal wave of discontent against President Goodluck Jonathan of the PDP. In 2015, Buhari made history as the first opposition candidate to defeat a sitting president in Nigeria. Hope filled the air. Nigerians dreamt of a country where corruption would die, where Boko Haram would be crushed in months, a nation where the economy would bounce back. His famous quote, "I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody," resonated with many Nigerians. But that dream quickly soured. Buhari took nearly 6 months to appoint his cabinet after assuming office. This delay created policy paralysis and sent worrying signals to investors. Meanwhile, the naira began a steep decline. Inflation rose, and in 2016, the economy slipped into recession, Nigeria's first in 25 years. Yet, Buhari's economic response was sluggish and confusing. Many key decisions, especially around forex policy, were delayed or mismanaged. Under his watch, Nigeria overtook India as the world's poverty capital. Buhari's anti-corruption wall was one of the biggest selling points he had, but it soon became clear it was more bark than bite. While opposition members were hounded and paraded, many of Buhari's close allies with corruption allegations remained largely untouched. The case of Abdul Rashid Baina, the fugitive pension boss reinstated into government service, was one of the most embarrassing. Then the secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, was caught in a 544 million grass-cutting scandal, yet delayed action and unclear accountability followed. Transparency International consistently rated Nigeria poorly under Buhari, with the country dropping to 154 out of 180 countries by 2022. Even more telling was the case of Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor whose tenure was marred by opaque policies, multiple exchange rates, the controversial Naira redesign issue, and widespread economic hardships. Despite public outrage and allegations of abuse of power, Buhari continued to shield Emefiele. Also, Ahmed Idris, the former accountant general of the federation under his watch, was suspended for an alleged 109 billion naira fraud. Another shocking incident was the appointment of Abdullahi Ganduje, a man caught on video allegedly receiving bribes in dollars as APC national chairman under Buhari's influence. This move, among others, cemented the perception that Buhari's anti-corruption war was selective and hypocritical. Buhari promised to end insecurity in months, but by 2023, Nigeria was bleeding from every corner. Despite billions of naira being voted annually for defense and security, the Boko Haram insurgency remained a constant menace throughout Buhari's 8-year rule. Entire villages in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states were sacked. Soldiers frequently complained of poor welfare and insufficient equipment. Military bases were attacked, civilians were abducted, displaced, and killed. Boko Haram and ISWAP adapted their tactics, spreading their influence into Lake Chad and the northeast. The Chibok and Dapchi schoolgirls still symbolize the pain and fear of that era. Despite claims that the group had been technically defeated, they remained actively deadly until the end of Buhari's tenure. But it didn't stop there. The Northwest grappled with banditry that morphed into full-blown terrorism. Zamfara, Katsina, and Kaduna saw mass abductions, killings, and extortions. In the southeast, separatist agitations led to militarized crackdowns. The southwest faced rising cult violence and kidnappings. In the Middle Belt, Fulani herdsmen farmer clashes escalated into ethnic and religious crisis. Buhari's administration, despite enormous security budgets, largely failed to restore peace. Nigerians grew used to living in fear as they quickly realized the government was not coming to save them. No one was. Buhari didn't just tolerate nepotism, he entrenched it. Top government positions became inheritance for the children of his friends, allies, and the elite. If you were poor or came from nowhere, if you were nobody, you simply didn't matter. Your future was never part of the plan. Perhaps one of the most divisive aspects of Buhari's presidency was his perceived bias and marginalization of certain regions, particularly the southeast. His infamous statement that 97% versus 5% in electoral support will reflect in appointments sent a dangerous signal of ethnic exclusion. Throughout his administration, top security and government positions were disproportionately filled by individuals from his North Fulani background. This lopsided approach undermined national unity and fueled agitation from marginalized regions, especially among the Igbo population. Under Buhari, the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB became increasingly radicalized, and instead of addressing the underlying grievances, the administration doubled down with military force and mass arrests. In a widely criticized tweet, Buhari threatened to treat agitators in a language they understand, a phrase many interpreted as a threat of violence against Igbos. He later referred to the southeast as a dot in a circle, a comment that further alienated millions. The initial tweet was not just inflammatory, it was dangerous. After Twitter took it down for violating its policies, Buhari's government responded with brute force. It banned the entire platform in Nigeria for over 7 months, choking free expression, silencing dissent, and crippling countless small businesses and the tech ecosystem in the process. Buhari's 2 terms were defined by economic stagnation. By 2023, Nigeria's debt profile had ballooned to over 77 trillion naira. Fuel subsidy, which he criticized in 2012 as a scam, continued throughout his tenure, consuming trillions with little transparency. In a 2018 interview, he drew heavy criticism for labeling Nigerian youth as lazy during a Commonwealth Business Forum in London. The statement infuriated many and was widely seen as dismissive of the struggles and creativity of many young Nigerians. Time and again, Buhari never missed an opportunity to speak down on Nigerian youth on the global stage. Whether referring to them as jobless or dependent, he constantly painted a picture of a generation lacking ambition. He became, in effect, the chief demarketer of Nigeria's youth abroad, a grave betrayal of the demographic that forms the backbone of the nation's future. Unemployment hit a record 33%, and youth unemployment hovered over 40%. The naira fell from 197 naira in 2015 to over 700 naira by the end of his presidency in official markets, and far worse on the black market. Despite the many shortcomings, Buhari's presidency wasn't without its achievements. One of the most notable was the completion and commissioning of the Second Niger Bridge, a long-delayed infrastructure project that had been a political promise for decades. The bridge symbolized Buhari's commitment to major capital projects, especially in the southeast. His administration also made progress in railway development. The Abuja-Kaduna rail line was completed and put to commercial use, and new rail projects like the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge line were commissioned. These efforts were aimed at modernizing Nigeria's transportation infrastructure. His legacy on infrastructure is perhaps one of the few areas where there was consistent effort and visible progress. One major flaw of Buhari's leadership style was his inaccessibility. Throughout his presidency, he held very few press briefings and rarely engaged with the Nigerian people. Public communication was often filtered through aides and spokespersons. This opaque approach created a vacuum that allowed misinformation, confusion, and disconnect between the government and the people. Only a small circle of trusted aides and loyalists had access to him, effectively walling him off from constructive criticism and alternative viewpoints. Adding to the mystery was his frequent and extended medical trips abroad, mostly to the UK, sparking concerns about who was really in charge during those times. One of the darkest moments of Buhari's presidency was the EndSARS protest of October 20, 2020. What started as a peaceful demonstration by Nigerian youths at the Lekki toll gate against police brutality turned tragic. Peaceful EndSARS protesters, waving flags and singing the national anthem, were met with gunfire. Lights were cut, cameras went dark, and bullets silenced unarmed voices. Eyewitness reports, video evidence, and international media suggested that military forces opened fire on peaceful protesters, yet the government repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. The event traumatized the generation and revealed the government's brutal posture toward dissent. Buhari's cold, pre-recorded address days later failed to acknowledge the loss of lives or offer genuine empathy. After the massacre that night and the events that followed, something broke in the heart of a generation. What began as a movement for justice ended in trauma, disillusionment, and a deep sense of betrayal. Trust in the government, which was already very fragile, completely collapsed. Many young Nigerians realized that even peaceful protests could cost them their lives. The government's denial and lack of accountability only deepened the wound. For countless youths, it became clear their country might never protect or value them. This moment triggered a mass exodus, the rise of the Japa wave, as young people began to see leaving Nigeria as the only protest left and the only path to safety, freedom, and dignity. By the time Buhari left office in 2023, the disillusionment was palpable. The very people who once chanted "Say Baba" in the streets now sighed in regret. The man who once symbolized discipline had presided over two of Nigeria's most turbulent and economically painful terms since the return to democracy. Buhari passed away in a London hospital on Sunday, July 13, 2025, a little over 2 years after he completed his presidency. While he was president, he spent over 200 days abroad on medical leave. This raised concerns over absentee leadership. It is said that 16 billion naira budgeted for Aso Rock Clinic from 2015 to 2025 was enough to build 6 ultra-modern hospitals in the 6 geopolitical zones. At one point, even Buhari's wife publicly lamented that the Aso Rock Clinic didn't have a single syringe, forcing her to seek medical care at a private hospital owned by foreigners. Nigerians were left asking, who exactly was she talking to? And what were we supposed to do about it? Her concern seems centered on herself and the wives of governors needing treatment, with no mention of the average Nigerian who had long suffered under a broken healthcare system. The irony was deafening. Buhari's legacy is a fractured nation, a fragile economy, rising insecurity, ethnic mistrust, alienated youth, and a disappointed electorate, though with pockets of infrastructural progress. Is it not odd that Nigerians refer to his tenure as reign or regime, reminiscent of someone who ruled with a heavy hand? It is worth revisiting 2 more events that offer a deeper glimpse into Buhari's character. In a chilling example of retroactive justice in the early 1980s, Buhari introduced Decree 20, which made drug trafficking punishable by death, a drastic change from the previous penalties. Bartholomew Owo and Bernard Ogedengbe were already serving prison terms for drug trafficking when, under the retroactive decree, they were retried and sentenced to death. People begged and pleaded with Buhari, but he refused. In 1985, these 2 men, along with Lawal Ojuolakwe, were taken to a firing squad at Kirikiri prison in Lagos and executed. The event drew public outcry, both for the severity of the punishment and for the way the law was applied to past crimes. Bartholomew Owo was the elder brother of the legendary Nigerian actor Nkem Owo, a towering figure in Nollywood known for his brilliance, versatility, and unforgettable roles in both comedy and drama. Secondly, following the 2011 presidential elections, which declared Goodluck Jonathan the winner over Buhari, violent riots erupted in parts of northern Nigeria. In Bauchi State, the anger quickly turned deadly, especially towards NYSC corps members, who had served as polling officials. Many of them were from southern Nigeria and were wrongly perceived as part of the system that denied the North their victory, or so they believed. In Giade, rioters attacked a police station where corps members had sought refuge, overwhelmed the police officers, and brutally murdered at least 10 corps members. They were hacked to death. Buhari is dead. Nigerians are angry, and rightfully so. They are being told to mourn a man who neither cared about them nor their future. A leader under whom they suffered, struggled, and fled. Many young Nigerians escaped the country in search of dignity, while others watched their families broken by poverty, insecurity, repression, and hopelessness. Buhari traumatized the generation, and now, even in death, Nigerians are expected to stay silent, to suppress their pain out of respect. Do not speak ill of the dead, they say. But perhaps the real question is this: shouldn't the living strive to lead lives that deserve to be remembered with honor, not resentment? They say on his deathbed, Buhari asked for forgiveness from Nigerians for his shortcomings. Forgiveness isn't owed, especially where justice was never done. If some Nigerians still carry the weight of what was done under his rule, please let them be. They have every right to withhold their forgiveness. Now, 2027 is almost here, so what happens next? Who inherits Buhari's loyal political base? The cult-like following of over 12 million Nigerians who repeatedly voted for him, especially in the north. Will it be Atiku Abubakar, whose old political machinery remains strong? Will it be Nasser El-Rufai, who shares Buhari's northern base and blunt demeanor? Or will Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, with his Kano-based Kwankwasiya movement, emerge as true heir to that legacy? How about Ganduje? Does he hold a close enough appeal? The answer remains unclear, but one thing is certain: Buhari's absence leaves a gaping vacuum in Nigeria's political north, and 2027 will be a defining test of who truly commands the hearts of that mass movement. Buhari's story is a harsh lesson that good character alone cannot substitute for effective leadership. Good intentions without competent governance can be just as dangerous as bad intentions. Dear Nigerians, as we look to the future, we must face a brutal truth. Reputation means nothing without results. Never again should sentiment, tribal loyalty, or empty charisma decide our fate at the ballot box. We've paid the price for believing in promises. Now it's time to demand performance. No more heroes without proof. No more blind hope. Only results should end power.